message that I want to bring to you is keep fighting. You get out of narcissistic abuse and you've been in such a fight, right? You've been in a different kind of fight where you're fighting with this person and you're fighting to survive and you're fighting to defend yourself all the time, and then you get out and the temptation is to give up because it's so freaking hard sometimes. The easy thing would be just to give up, but that's the easy way. And some people say that when you take the easy path, you're going to have a difficult life. And if you take the difficult path, you're going to have an easier life. There's different kinds of fights, right? Like sometimes we have to fight the same battle over and over again. Like we fought this battle in the past and it just keeps showing up. Maybe it keeps showing up with a different face, a different situation, a different context. It's the same fight. Sometimes what we think is over comes back. And there's some fights that we fight on a daily basis. Like it's so repetitive, it's just day after day after day we're fighting. And that fight could be as simple as getting out of bed in the morning. Over. I think that's why we're here in this life. I think we're here to learn, to grow, to experience things. That's why I think it's never over. And I think that people who tell you that they're entirely enlightened and they're entirely healed and all that, don't trust those people because they're full of shit. Because nobody is. Nobody is. And, there's a funny joke, he says, if you think you're so enlightened, go spend 3 days with your mother. You're kind of further along in your healing journey after the narcissistic abuse, you might start to be realizing that there was some gift in that the narcissist came into your life for some kind of higher purpose, to point out something to you, to awaken some kind of sense of passion and purpose in your life, to awaken a new direction in your life, to awaken your mind. And speaking of the mind, sometimes some of the biggest battles that take place in our life is in the mind. It's not even real out here, but it's extremely real in here. It's our reality. It's our everyday reality. It's in our inner dialogue. It's the way we talk to ourselves. It's the repetitive thoughts that come up. It's the thoughts that we're afraid of, the thoughts that scare the piss out of us, the thoughts that make us just want to cower and give up and not believe in ourselves. And sometimes the fight is with ourselves and the voices that we've internalized through a lifetime. And sometimes the fight is in your mind, but it's like someone else's words. It's your mother or your father or your ex or whomever, and you're fighting with them in your mind. So sometimes the fight is external in the world, and sometimes it's entirely internal. You get battle scars from the fight. You're gonna get battle scars, and what that means is that you survived. Instead of looking at it like some kind of ugly wound that you have, look at it like this wound reminds me that I survived. I got through that. I survived that battle. And sometimes you get into the kind of fights where it's you're crawling through hell. Literally you're just scraping, crawling through hell, and you just have no fight left. How many of you have had one of those moments, even lately? And so when that happens, what do you do? What do you do when you're terrified that you have no fight left, when you just don't feel like you have it in you? The answer is you get back up, baby. You get back up. You find your why. You find a reason to keep fighting. So that's the question, and that's the challenge I have for you, is what do you fight for? Who do you fight for? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why would you scrape yourself off the floor of hell to keep going? Why? Who are you fighting for? What is worth fighting for? Maybe you're fighting for an ideal or a value like love, peace, justice, right? Whatever that is, I encourage you to ask yourself, and ask yourself now. That way the answer is there. That way you start to tap into that. That way when the going gets really tough, because you know it can happen like that, right? It suddenly just hits you. And if you don't have a plan, if you're not prepared for that, you might be tempted to give up. You might be tempted just to lay down and curl into a ball on the floor of hell and not get back up and fight. So ask yourself, who is worth fighting for? What is worth fighting for? What do you fight for when the going gets tough? And, remember that you fight sometimes with your body, you fight most certainly with your mind, and sometimes you fight with your heart. And when it comes down to that moment of you don't know if you can do it, you don't know if you have it in you, that's when you have to call upon everything that you've got, your body, your mind, your heart, and fight with everything that you have. Because remember, giving up is the easy path. There's this word called perseverance. If you look it up in the dictionary, it'll tell you this. It shows you this graph of usage. It's like the 1800s, it's really high. It's like a high usage word, perseverance. Nowadays, after the year 2000 or so, it's quite low. It's you can see the graph just plummets. What does that mean? That means people aren't persevering as much. We're not talking about it, we're not doing it, right? So if people aren't persevering as much, they're giving up more. Why? I don't know. Maybe people are just so beaten down by society's narcissistic abuse, by family's narcissistic abuse, by relationships' narcissistic abuse, just by the daily struggle, by how false this reality is that we live in, that's based on consumption and production, and where is anything real? Even just in social context and conversation, are we talking about something real? Are we connecting based on something real? Or is it just superficial crap that doesn't mean anything? That's not worth fighting for. Who's going to want to persevere and fight for that stuff? So remember that just because the direction of society is going one way doesn't mean you need to follow that path. Just because everybody else is hitting the easy button because it's easy, it doesn't mean you need to follow that path, because we need leaders, and we need leaders now more than ever to wake people up, just to guide them by shining their own light. Because you can't change anybody else. You can't force anybody else to change at all. You can only shine your light and hope that in that reflection someone sees it. If you're the lighthouse on the shore and you're shining your light, the boats can come in. But if you're not shining that light, how are the boats ever going to find the shore? They're just going to get lost. You got to take care of you. You got to get yourself right. You got to get yourself healthy so that you can shine your light for your kids, so they can follow your example and not the example of that other parent who's just beating them down, And I think it's important to remember that sometimes the right path is not the popular path. It's not the easy path. And what you're going to find is that when you take that path, which is not the easy path and not the popular path, there's very little competition on that path, actually, because there's very few people willing to go that direction. So it's important to remember not to give up, to remember to persevere, to find that determination. Perseverance means steadfastness. It means doing something despite the challenge, despite the difficulty. And if ever there was a challenge, it's recovering from narcissistic abuse. It's finding something worth fighting for. If you want to find a reason to heal, if you want to find a reason to get better, to keep going, find something or someone to fight for. I'm sending you a big hug.